Greetings, family. Welcome to another edition of Black Talk Radio, where black media matters and black life certainly matters. Today is Sunday, July 8th, 2018. Well, family, this video is about the biggest threats against the future of affirmative action in the United States. One headline reads, Asian Americans are at the tipping point for rejecting affirmative action. Progressives refuse to address the disproportionate harm done to Asian students by affirmative action policies, but everyone else is waking up to it. Now, I find this argument, first of all, repulsive for a couple reasons. Number one is Asian Americans shouldn't even be in the discussion of affirmative action. The reason for affirmative action programs were for that of black Americans, namely the heirs of those who were enslaved and built the United States of America. Without those people investing their blood, sweat, and tears, their lives and their families, America today wouldn't be anything of what she boasts to be. So, affirmative action were meant for black Americans, plain and simple. So for Asian Americans to even come into the discussion of how affirmative action is unfair to them, they shouldn't even have a voice. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, they should pack up and go back to China or Japan or wherever they came from. Again, in my opinion, they shouldn't even be part of the discussion. Plain and simple. Affirmative action, as a matter of fact, has benefited white women the most. And again, they took the benefits from black people. That was white women. If you look around in most of the job sites, the reason why they are there is because they took, or rather stole, the benefits that were supposed to be for black people. Those benefits were designed and that program was set up for black people, not people of color, not anyone else. I am specifically stating black people. That's because that's what the program was initially set up for. How all these other people came into the discussion and how they've come to America way after the fact, after my ancestors have been here over 3, almost 4 centuries. How they've come after the fact and have made use of benefits that were supposed to be for black people is insulting to black Americans. It is insulting when this nation, this land we call the land of the free, home of the brave, that's because black people fought in every single war this country has fought. But yet, you've allowed other people who we have fought against, you've allowed them to come to this country and benefit over the people who actually fought for this country. In other words, the people from Asia who you fought against, you now allow them to come to our homeland and reap benefits, again, that were designed for black people. The Middle Easterns, you've allowed them to come to America and reap the benefits that were designed for black people. The Mexican War, you've allowed them to come to America and reap the benefits over the people who, again, were enslaved and built this nation, which allowed you to reap the benefits and build one of the best armies this world has ever seen. And it was all because of the benefits you reaped from the souls of black folk. From the souls of black folk. Your culture, you have reaped the benefits from the souls of black folk. and yet you try to make us as the bad guy. Always. Well, there's a new deputy in town, and his name is not goddamn Sheriff fucking Clark. He's been fired. It's called justice. That's what this world is seeing today. But I've stepped off away from this subject matter, so let's get back to the story. My apology. Let's move on. So, family, by now you've heard that this week the Trump administration reversed an Obama-era policy that encouraged colleges to use race as a consideration in admissions. In other words, instead of having a student membership of 95 to 98% only white Americans, there was a program set up that made it fair that other people who wanted to improve their lives and go to a college and attend college and better their lives, make their lives better for themselves and their families, race was a consideration, because that was only fair, because we live in a system called white supremacy. Why we call it that, I'll never understand that, but nonetheless, it's termed white so-called supremacy, and under this unjust system known to mankind, well, we've had to come up with other ways to make it fair and honest for other people who are not white. And so therefore we put in place policies that made it fair. But now the Trump administration, of course, has come along and, well, because a black man, of course, wanted to improve this nation, Trump wants to come behind and, well, reverse those trends. And so here we are at a crux where they're now using Asians. And family, this is what I wanted to get to. How the so-called white supremacist system is trying to use Asians against African Americans. They're trying to pit Asians and make this fight of affirmative action, the whole argument and debate, they're trying to make it and push the fight against blacks and Asians. This is a ploy. It's a distraction, as a matter of fact, but it's really a ploy. I really want you to see that. That's something I wanted to bring out in this video. And since I think I've done that, we can move on from that point. But do note that that's a ploy that they're using with this whole Asians are at their crux of, at the crossroads of, trying to end affirmative action because it's not fair to them. Like I said from the gate, though, and I'm going to repeat it right now, is that they have no argument whatsoever. They had nothing. As a matter of fact, my question is, where were you during the 3.5 centuries of slavery? Where were you at? Where was your ancestors at? Because last time I checked, affirmative action had nothing to do with you. There was reasons why we have an affirmative action program, like I reminded you already. But we're going to move on from this point. So, in addition to these two developments, a New York City plan to use race as an element in admissions to elite public high schools that are now dominated by Asian students, and allegations that Harvard University is discriminating against Asian applicants have woken a sleeping dragon. What has been known for some time but is now getting the attention it deserves is that affirmative action programs disproportionately harm Asians. In fact, they harm them far more than they harm whites. Do you hear the ploy here? Like I said, how white so-called supremacy is trying to push the argument towards Asians, how they've put them in the middle of this whole argument, when again the whole affirmative action program was set up for black Americans. That's what affirmative action was set up for. And like I said, white women have benefited the most. They have stolen resources that did not belong to them, that they did not earn whatsoever. But we're going to move on. So, historically, the basis and justification for race-based admissions was that white students benefited from centuries of racial injustice in myriad ways. As a result, affirmative action was meant to redress historical imbalances and level the playing field for minority, rather black students. But now that we see race-based admissions are disadvantaging Asians more than they are whites, this basis simply falls apart. Again, they should go back to wherever they came from. They shouldn't even be a part of this discussion when we're talking about resources that, again, where were they during the 3.5 centuries of slavery? When black people were building up this nation financially, economically, to even start what we call a capitalist society. Without all those resources that black people earned for this nation, we wouldn't have been able to even have a capitalist system. Let's be truthful and honest here. But let's move on. It is farcical to imagine that somehow centuries of systematic white supremacy are benefiting Asian students, many of whom are first-generation Americans or even immigrants themselves. Do you see what I'm talking about, family? How these people have come way after the fact and asking and wanting way more than they even possibly have even begun to earn. This is what's insulting to black Americans. Anyways, moving on. Moreover, there is no plausible way to suggest that these recent arrivals had any hand in creating the systems that disadvantage other minority groups. Well, none of this, however, stopped the Congressional Black Caucus from essentially calling the president a racist for his new policy. Its leader, Cedric Richmond, had this to say, quote, "While I am not surprised, I continue to be disappointed that the president of this great country cares so little of its non-white residents and their interests," unquote. Unless we have suddenly decided that Asians are in fact white, this statement is absurd on its face. By far, the greatest beneficiaries of ending affirmative action would be non-white Asian students. Let me repeat that again. Unless we have suddenly decided that Asians are in fact white, this statement is absurd on its face. By far the greatest beneficiaries of ending affirmative action would be non-white Asian students. So the Congressional Black Caucus, the Democratic National Committee, and many in the liberal media simply ignore the harm done to Asian students under this program. Well, I beg to differ, whoever this author is, and I'm going to get to that probably at the end, but nonetheless, I just want to say that I beg to differ, okay? We're not concerned with the damage it's doing to Asian Americans. Again, where were they during the 3.5 centuries, 4 centuries of slavery? Where were they? Because they surely weren't doing the hard building of this nation of what black people were doing, and why the affirmative action program was not set up for them in the first place. Can we have that discussion? Yes, it's time that black people fight for their rights, especially in their own home, their own country. Well, look, family, instead of me ending this whole piece here, I'm just going to leave the link in the description, and you check out the article yourself. So I'm going to end it off here so I can get to another video. But thanks a lot for tuning in. This is Black Talk Radio. Leave your comments in the comment section. Thumbs up. Peace out.